Hello, and welcome to this 2008 Chevy Impala. So this one, it's the LT trim, so it's pretty base model. So meaning it has the 3.5 liter V6 in it. So let me show you this. Pretty cool. It could have had a 3.9 liter V6 based off of the same block as this. Or if you got the SS model, it could have had a 5.3 liter V8. But this one has a 3.5 liter. Makes okay power. It's like 211 horsepower and 214 pound-feet of torque. So nothing crazy. And they all had a 4-speed transmission, which is kind of crazy for 2008. But this one has seen better days. Person that had it backed up into a tree here, a little bit there, and then here casually ran over a boulder. But this one does have the flex fuel, so it can run on normal gas or E85, and actually surprisingly it gets pretty good gas mileage. It's at 18 city and 29 highway, but the person that owns it, so they average about 23 to 25. And then on the key here, little trunk button, pops it. And I was actually very surprised because this trunk is massive. Maybe it doesn't show up in camera, but like, oh my lord, it's 527 liters, which kind of means nothing unless you have something to compare it to. So like the Honda Accord from this era, like so 2008, it was right under 400 liters, so it's a pretty fat trunk. Lucky for the owner of this car, it is the base trim LT model 3.5 liter V6, but it doesn't have the active fuel management system, which is a good thing, because what it would do is on the highway it would shut off half of the cylinders when you're just cruising to save fuel economy. But it had a lot of oil consumption issues and was pretty unreliable. But it is interesting how the system works. They just kind of, a little valve comes up in the oil pan and it like sprays oil at the pistons to cool them off. But yeah, had fuel consumption issues. So yeah, it has 225 section tires all around on a 16-inch rim, so the sidewall of these tires is pretty fat, which leads into the ride of it. It's super nice, but we'll get into that. But let's get on to the interior. All right, interior of this car, I mean, it's kind of what you'd expect, but considering it's 2008 General Motors, it's really not awful. Got some plastic trim, just hard plastics just about everywhere. Got the little African antelope, some storage over here, but this is the base trim, so you got cloth seats all around. Although you do have like half power, all it does is move forward and then you can move it up and down, stuff like that. But the rear backrest is not powered. Auto for this, manual, or not manual, but like not auto, not one touch for the others. Locks where you'd expect it. Although what does kind of surprise me is the systems here. So it does have TPMS sensors. I mean, granted, like 2 of them are out by now, but it shows your oil life, so you can reset that. Units, tire, see that one's broken, but it's reading these 2. So it's kind of cool for 2008. It's not too bad, but it does normal stuff. Trip, fuel range, I mean, that's gonna be kind of inaccurate. Average fuel economy, blah, blah, blah. Has a little compass in there, shows the outside temp, shows what gear you're in, but pretty standard in here. But so I'm pretty comfortable here, and I'm 6'4". So let's see sitting behind myself if it's possible. Oh yeah, easily. I mean, my knees are up against here and my head is the only thing that's kind of bad, headroom, but it's very comfortable. I could sit back here for an extended period of time. Other stuff, pretty standard. It does have auto headlights, so it'll turn on and off. You have a little dial to control at night the actual brightness of the gauge cluster, then it'll turn on that. But yeah, pretty standard. Cruise control. It does have a vent that goes up here, blows on your window, which I thought was kind of cool. It's just a little vent that goes from here and up. All right, start it up. Now, let's see here. It's got 139,000 on the odometer, so it's not too bad for 2008. And from the person that owned it, I've heard it's pretty reliable. They haven't had many problems with it, although rats did get into like the spark plugs and chewed some wires. So it's kind of fire. She got that fixed. But yeah, power everything. So power mirrors, power doors, power locks, what you'd expect. Nice. All right. Now, this is kind of a grandpa car. Drives super smooth, 4-speed transmission. It kind of just wants you to waft along. So it is very much not sporty. This is probably the furthest from a sports car I've ever driven. But with that, its suspension is actually really nice. Because I went to Mexico and literally all they had was like Chevys just everywhere, because their roads are just so terrible. Or at least where I went. Cancun area. But so the suspension's super nice, not sporty at all, ton of body roll, but it does have 225 section tires, so like could be worse. But yeah, you kind of just waft along. The gearbox does not want you to downshift at all, it just wants you to ride out the gear. Now, this thing's probably biggest competitor is like the Honda Accord from the era, or like the Camry. Now, this isn't, I've driven Accords, actually 2008 one. It does feel a lot more like sporty and like rigid, but this one just wafts and it's super relaxing on the highway. And to be honest, gets better gas mileage, because that one, they could have had, well, the one that I drive is a 4-cylinder, makes 180 horsepower, K24, but it could have come with a V6, but neither one really gets good gas mileage. But this one, for a big old 3.5 liter V6, gets good gas mileage. It's pretty surprising. But it kind of just wafts. It is bigger than the Accord. You'll have a lot more room, to be fair. Although it doesn't have any like rear vents or anything really. So you get some trade-offs. But it just kind of depends on who you are, because this has always been kind of like a grandpa car. No like younger kid I feel like is gonna want these unless they just want a chill car to relax. But they're pretty cheap, and I've heard they're pretty reliable, other than wheel bearings. As the suspension wears out, it just puts strain on the wheel bearings and they just go bad. This one hasn't had any problems with that. I've also heard the transmission isn't very reliable, but again, haven't had any problems with it. Person that owned this one. So as long as you take care of it, maintenance, you should be fine. Of course, we gotta see how it handles though, so I'm gonna punch it here. Super tall gears. And that's about 60. First gear can take you to right at 60, which is pretty crazy. Which is good for the highway cruising. It's also very snowy and wet, so I'm not gonna be pushing this car. But yeah, on the highway, you're just sitting at 2,000 RPM going like 80. It's super nice. Which probably helps with the fuel economy, obviously. But ton of body roll. I just know. But it honestly doesn't do as bad as you would think, because this thing is pretty chunky and heavy. You feel the weight in the corners. But yeah, this thing was not meant to corner, but I mean, it can. It's not too bad. Steering's super light, but honestly gives you pretty good feedback. Honestly, better steering in my opinion than like, actually no. The steering in the, I was gonna compare it to a 2019 Leaf, because I remember that as being super light, but this one's a little bit worse than that. But also driving the Altima down this road, you would hear every bump and it would be super crashy. But in this, it's just calm, reserved. It's kind of nice. So this would definitely be a car that you would drive on rough roads, but far from a sports car. Now, maybe unfortunately, this thing is front wheel drive, so you're not going to be able to like drift this thing around really. But it's front wheel drive, so you mainly get understeer in the corners, which to be honest is pretty safe I feel like for just a normal driver, I'd rather have them have an understeer than oversteer. A bit safer. But overall, this car is pretty wafty and nice to ride in for long drives. Super practical too, big old car. So really not a bad experience. I think this car, depending on what price you can get it at, not too bad. I personally wouldn't, because I'd want something a bit more confidence inspiring. This one's not really very confident in the corners, but good gas mileage, super comfortable to ride in. So not too terrible. But yeah, this is just a little short video. Nothing too crazy with this car. Although I do have a pretty cool video coming up, so stay tuned. But thank you for watching. If you liked it, like the video. If you didn't like it, tell me what I could do. And peace.